Good afternoon. Here we have the former Foreign Minister of Turkey, Yasar Yakis. Thank you very much for coming to our interview.
Thank you.
With regard to the damming of Euphrates, do you think that has negatively impacted the relationship between Turkey
Regarding what?
the damming of Euphrates, the river?
Euphrates, yes.
Oh, sorry about my pronunciation. Do you think the damming has negatively impacted the relationship between Turkey and its neighbors? And could cultural diplomacy maybe find a solution for this?
Yes, actually, the damming of Euphrates River and also Tigris River, which has there are two rivers that runs into the Persian Gulf, and they meet each other. They are confluent, as you may know, in Shatt al Arab. So the two rivers have to be taken as one river basin as a whole. It damaged in the past Turkey's relationship with downstream countries, but this question was slightly politicized, and the factual element of it was ignored, because when we talk with reasonable people, by damming the Euphrates River, you also serve the interest of the downstream countries. How do you do it? In the downstream countries, in spring, when the snow melts in the upper high altitude mountain in Anatolia, it floods downstream countries. They cannot use the fields which is submerged. And in autumn, when they need more water, there is no sufficient water, because it is the debit of the river goes down. When you dam the rivers, you guarantee a steady flow of water, because most of the dams in Turkey are for the purpose of generating power. If you want to generate power, you have to release the water. If you keep the water for yourself, in the first instance, Turkey will be submerged by the water of Euphrates and Tigris. Secondly, when you keep the water, you cannot generate power. So you generate power, and you guarantee a stable supply of water to the downstream countries. And this is what we were not able to get on a reasonable understanding with the downstream countries. If this question is depoliticized, so the influence of the political dimension of it is cleared, I think that an understanding is much easier. In South Africa, in the Zambezi River, not only the downstream countries oppose the construction of the dams upstream, on the contrary, they contribute money to the upstream countries' construction, because they are going to receive more stable quantity of water.
Yeah.
So this is my answer to your question.
The question I would like to ask you regarding Turkey's position towards the Islamic world. Since Turkey is the most substantial and capable military force in the region, should Turkey shift its stance to a pro-Arab, anti-Israel position, the consequences for Israel's long-term national security would not be trivial. So is it possible, can you elaborate a little bit on Turkey's stance on the long term regarding Israel?
Actually, Turkey is shifting to the military power again, or Turkey to be regarded as a military power, is something that we discard at present since several years now, since more than a decade. Turkey is remembered as a hard power country because it had the biggest army after the United States in NATO. So Turkey was the second biggest country in NATO as far as the contingent in the military power is concerned. For this reason, Turkey was regarded, and also because of the Ottoman military power might, it was regarded as a hard power country. Now, since at least after the collapse of the Soviet Union and dismemberment of the Soviet Union, Turkey shifted the emphasis from the hard powers and military power to soft power. And we have seen that in the geography where Turkey could be more efficient, influential, these are 3 or 4 regions in the world: the Middle East, the Balkans, Caucasus, and Central Asia. With the exception of Central Asia, with the countries of Central Asia, we have linguistic and cultural relations, but with the others we don't have it. We have only historical relations. In the remaining 3 regions, Balkans, Caucasus, and the Middle East, there is already a negative legacy of Ottoman presence there. So military visibility there will antagonize people of this region, whereas peacemaking efforts and non-military assistance in rebuilding, reconstruction of the country, or construction of the universities, supplying professors, etc., that type of things, and the economic cooperation, that's to say tools of the soft power, is more welcome in all 3 regions: Balkans, Caucasus, and the Middle East. For this reason, Turkey does not want to be regarded as military power any longer, one thing. Secondly, even if it were to maintain the military power, we do not think that siding with the military power against Israel is not the way to achieve something. Because for Israel, survival is very important. And if this military balance shifts against Israel in favor of Turkey and the countries around it, United States will step in and it will re-establish the balance again in favor of Israel. So we should not look at it like this. For this reason, until very recently, until 2006 and 7 or 2008, Turkey was the only country which was able to speak to the Arab and Palestinian side and to the Israeli side at the same time. And it was playing a role of message carrier or facilitator. It broke down when Turkey was trying to work out a framework between Syria and Israel, and an agreement was reached in Istanbul for Israel to give its last answer to a set of questions by Syria. And when we were waiting for a meeting on Monday, after the weekend, after Shabbat, etc., we found out that there was this attack on Gaza, which is called caste-led operation, and more than 1,000 people was killed. And Turkey felt betrayed by this attitude, running an exercise of mediation between two, and all of a sudden the mediator finds itself in the middle of nowhere. So this caused a certain disappointment on the Turkish side. And then later on, what were called the flotilla incident, the Israeli military forces attacked a civilian, unarmed Turkish ship which was sailing in the international waters. And as you may know, in the international law, this type of action is called piracy. And when it is carried to the civilian ship of a friendly country, then it becomes all the more important. For this reason, the relations are now are not at the best level, and it needs improvement. But Israel and Turkey, being the only two countries of the region which is governed by a democratic regime, they need each other in the future. especially now that as a result of the Arab Spring, the entire region may move towards a turmoil without knowing what type of outcome will emerge. So, in such an environment, the cooperation between two democratic countries becomes all the more important. And Turkey and Israel enjoy another good historical relations that you may not know of. When Jews of Spain were expelled from there in 1492, it was the Ottoman state that opened its border, and the biggest majority of the Sephardim Jews at that time emigrated to Ottoman Empire, and they were settled in the most prominent Ottoman cities like Thessaloniki, like Belgrade, Istanbul, Alexandria, Athens, and Beirut. All these were Ottoman territories. They settled there and they flourished there. And curious enough, the Istanbul Jews at present do not speak Hebrew. They speak a language called Ladino. Ladino is the language spoken in 1492 in Spain. So they still keep this language. This showed that the continuity, and several decades ago, we celebrated in Turkey the 500th anniversary of the arrival of Jews in Turkey in 1992. So we are living together with the Jews in Turkey since more than 500 years in harmony. So this will not be forgotten by the fair thinking and reasonable Jews. For this reason, I believe that hostility between Turkey and Israel cannot survive, cannot last long, and it will be overcome. And Turkey, together with the other countries of the region, should seek a sort of modus vivendi between Israel and the neighboring countries, like the ones that is now promoted by the United States, that say two-state solutions. It may solve a lot of problems. And now that more conservative government will emerge almost in all Arab countries, we cannot expect a more liberal government emerge, because the population of all of these 5 or 6 countries are pious Muslims. For this reason, whichever party wins the elections, it will be a more conservative Islamic-based government. So Israel will have more difficulty in the future with this government, and Turkey's role as facilitator, as mediator, or message carrier, whatever you call it, will become more important. I regard the future of the Turkish-Israel relation more important because of these reasons.
You mentioned that Turkey would like to achieve higher involvement and influence within the region of Middle East. And I would like to ask how exactly could Turkey, through the use of cultural diplomacy, build the bridges within the region?
I would like to say that Turkey does not want to play a more active role than it is supposed to play. Which microphone should I talk to? This one? Okay. Turkey, I happen to be the longest serving Turkish diplomat in the Middle Eastern countries. I served 4 years in Syria, 4 years in Saudi Arabia, and 4 years in Egypt. So my perception, my recollection regarding the attitude of the public opinion towards Turkey is different from many other people who did not live that long in the region. In all this geography, the Ottoman legacy is remembered more with negative side of it. For this reason, there are limits and constraints to the role that Turkey could play in this region. This is why I said that the soft power role of Turkey is more important, because with this hard power you cannot go because of this negative legacy or Ottoman legacy with pronounced negative side of it, with the way the Middle Eastern public opinion perceives it. However, Turkey, being part of this region, geographically, culturally, historically, it cannot ignore either the role which is incumbent to it, because we lived together with these people under the umbrella of the same Ottoman state for centuries, more than 4 centuries. So we have a lot of common things, divided families, common history, common mentality, and with all these common things, Turkey cannot afford to turn its back to the region and look elsewhere. Turkey is a Middle Eastern country, a Caucasian country, Balkan country, Mediterranean country, European country, because Turkey was part of Europe for centuries. It contributed sometimes with war, sometimes with peace, to the shaping of the European history for centuries, by moving all the way to Vienna and besieging Vienna. So this is part of the shaping of the history. And throughout the history, you will remember that many Christian countries allied with Turkey against other Christian countries in Europe. So Turkey was not only perceived as a Muslim world as opposed to Christian Europe. On the contrary, many European Christian countries allied with Turkey against their Christian enemies. So it is part of European history. It contributed a lot to the shaping of the European history. So when you take this aspect of the question, Turkey is also a European country, and it should use all of these titles at the same time. Turkey should not regard itself as a Middle Eastern country, period. It's not that way. It is Mediterranean country, one of the countries that has longest shore on the Mediterranean Sea, Middle Eastern country, Caucasus and the Balkans and Europe in general. So it has to use all these things in order to contribute to the stability in the region.
Do you think cultural diplomacy might help to improve the relations between Turkey and Cyprus?
Yes, actually, this is perhaps the only area left to us, because politically the positions are now frozen and calcified almost, and it cannot be easily changed. Cultural diplomacy may play a role. We need perhaps depoliticize the cultural events between Turkish side of Cyprus as opposed to the Greek side of Cyprus. You may have noticed that recently there were attacks to the Turkish basketball players, or when a Turkish singer went to the south, she was attacked also by radicalist people there. Whereas we believe that this is the way to help melting the stubborn positions. When we enjoy the music of each other and the daily life, we have a lot of common, especially Cypriots themselves have a lot of common. Being an island, the islanders have this attitude in social sciences of being close to exogenous influence, and to keep themselves among themselves, whether they are Christian, Muslim, or Turk or Greek. They are part of the same island, isolated by the sea. So this common identity should be improved, more utilized by perhaps receiving in a more hospitable manner the cultural envoys such as basketball players, singers, etc. And I think this will smoothen the ground for the political reconciliation in the long run.
Maybe one last quick question.
Yes.
During your lecture, you talked about how perception is the reality when it comes to cultural diplomacy. Could you maybe give a good or a bad example of this?
One bad example is that I mentioned during my lecture. It was when, let's take the last question of Cyprus. Whatever the Turks do, if it is perceived as a negative step by the Greek Cypriots, for them it is negative. You may have done it for good intention, but if they perceived it as something wrong, for them it is a wrong step. And if one country has to take measures against a threat that comes from the other country, it will take measures according its perception. Whether the first country is threatening really the country B, it is irrelevant. If this action is perceived as a threat, for them it's a threat, and they will take these measures. It is the right of a country to take measures against a threat that is coming toward it. But it is not a threat, we may say. If they perceive it as a threat, for them it's a threat. And now this was the bad example. For the good example, if something is done in a manner which is likable and which is acceptable, admissible, which is in line with their culture, perception, and the preconceived ideas, then they will internalize it more easily, they will digest it better, and they will embrace it better, and they will make this element more part of their culture. So this is what I meant by the importance of the perception. Perception is the reality. This is a general rule in social sciences.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yasar Yakis, for the interview.
Thank you.
Thank you.